Aloha, good afternoon, and thank you for watching. This is Now on Kauai. Fire crews continue to work to extinguish a brush fire that sparked just before noon yesterday and prompted the evacuation of residents in Kauai on the island's west side. We got an update from Fire Chief Michael Gibson today. Here's some of what he had to say.
Although the fire was 100% contained last night of such a large area, we are experiencing some hotspots. We have several helicopters in the air. We have our own Air One. We're being supported by Hawaii National Guard with 2 larger helicopters capable of dropping a lot more water than we can. The fire was actually moving in a direction to threaten the entire village, Kamakani village, of about 250 or more homes. The firefighters were able to contain the fire to the very corner of the complex, and they lost just one shed that was unattached to the residential structure.
Now, while the fire is 100% contained at this time, KFD is urging the public to remain vigilant until the blaze is put out. Our Dylan Ancheta joins us live now from Kauai with the latest on the firefight, and he has new reaction from residents. Dylan.
Yes, thank you so much, Ashley. The wind is rather brisk and breezy today, which is why there are those lingering concerns of possible flare-ups. Now, we got here on Kauai early this morning and we came straight out to the west side. And as soon as we got out of our car at the edge of the burn site, we still saw some areas were actually still smoldering here. If you can take a look, this is just how close that this fire got to the highway here. And I also want to show you this right over my shoulder. As you can see, crews are on scene here working to repair downed telephone poles. These are trucks from Hawaiian Telecom. We also know that KIUC crews were out here all evening working to restore power here. There were some poles that were either burned or went down, damaged in some sort as a result of this fire. Now, again, this fire started just before noon yesterday. We were all made aware of it just around 1:30 in the afternoon. And initially, it was a small brush fire. We were told that there were about 28 acres that had burned. However, due to the dry conditions and the strong winds yesterday, the fire quickly grew, and that prompted the evacuation of Kauai. And fast forward to today, we've learned that upwards of 1,100 acres had burned. Now, the good news is county officials are saying that this fire is 100% and there were no homes destroyed in this. However, they did say one structure, which was a shed, that did burn. However, we went down into Kauai, the Kauai area, and the flames got so close to the homes, and most of the damage was on the perimeter of those properties. But it is incredible to see just how close that these flames got to those properties. The evacuation orders for the Kauai residents were lifted at around just before midnight last night. We know of at least 250 or so homes that were evacuated from the area. 2 shelters were open, one at Waimea High School and the other in Hanapepe, and the roads reopened around 3 a.m. Another big thing, the power, that was also restored in the early morning hours. So a lot of residents on edge. However, they were breathing a sigh of relief today. I spoke with some of them. Here's what they said.
It definitely put things into perspective. Knowing that the fire was literally like a 1-minute walk away from my house, it was very scary. I think if you think about the Lahaina, they were kind of caught off guard as well. And so I think what I felt must have been like so much worse, because at least I had the time to actually pack my things and go. Otherwise, like as in Lahaina, they kind of just left everything behind. And so I definitely like see things differently now, and I'm very grateful that everything is okay and everyone's safe.
I'm feeling blessed, grateful, and just relieved that there were no further devastation, because we think of Maui, Lahaina, and you know this Kauai village, you know, it's a nostalgic part of the west side.
Those residents were very grateful again for the quick response from county officials and the firefighters. Also to note, the water conservation request that was up for Hanapepe area, that has also been lifted, and officials have deployed these N5 sensors that will help them detect with any flare-ups. We know that those sensors were rolled out after the Maui wildfires across the state, but now we actually saw them here in use here on Kauai. And again, today, the efforts between county and state resources continue. We saw some water drops happening earlier today. And once again, as you see, crews remain on scene monitoring for any flare-ups. Ash?
To speak with the mayor, what did he have to say?
Yeah, Mayor Derek Kawakami, essentially, he's really proud of how the county reacted and responded. I asked, did everything go as planned? And he essentially said, yes, they did what they were supposed to do. There was a small hiccup with one of the television emergency alert system warnings. However, they say they quickly addressed that. And people were alerted via telephone. And they were also alerted by the sound of the civil defense sirens. That resident we spoke to said she got the alert on her phone, and then she heard the sirens and she knew that that meant it was time to go. So Mayor Derek Kawakami essentially saying that they are proud of how they responded. I also asked if things went to plan or if there were anything that he would do, if there was anything that he would do differently. And he did say there's always room for improvement, but ultimately he said the county did what they were supposed to do.
All right, Dylan Anchesa reporting from Kauai for us this afternoon. Thank you for that reporting, Dylan. And now to the latest on the firefight on the Valley Isle. On Maui, Kula residents are being urged to stay vigilant as the Crater Road fire continues to burn on the slopes of Haleakala. It's now 80% contained and has burned 574 acres since it started last Wednesday. Crews using bulldozers have cut lines around 70% of the fire's 4-mile perimeter. Maui's fire chief says the battle has been physically demanding on firefighters.
Just a reminder to the community to remain vigilant. This fire is not out. We are not done with it, and we will be up there continuing to work on hotspots. There are some sections of the fire that are dangerous that we're unable to work in. For example, the eucalyptus trees that have burnt through are falling down.
Right now, there are no mandatory evacuations, reports of any injuries or structures damaged. The cause is still under investigation. The FBI has gained access to cell phone data of the man who tried to assassinate former President Donald Trump at a campaign rally on Saturday in western Pennsylvania. CBS News has also learned the 20-year-old gunman's father called local police after the shooting. Charlie DeMar reports from Butler, Pennsylvania.
New details are emerging about the moments right before a gunman opened fire at Saturday's campaign rally, injuring former President Donald Trump. A local law enforcement officer with direct knowledge of the incident told CBS News 3 snipers from local tactical teams were stationed inside the building the shooter used in his attack. At one point, one of the snipers spotted the gunman, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, sitting outside the building looking at his phone, and took a photo. After the sniper observed Crooks looking through a rangefinder and immediately radioed to the command post. When Crooks was spotted again with a backpack, the officer called for backup, but by the time the officer responded, the gunman had scaled the building. The House Committee on Homeland Security announced it will hold a hearing next week on the circumstances surrounding the attack.
There are going to be independent investigations on that.
On CBS Mornings, Trump's senior advisor, Jason Miller, declined to comment on calls for the head of the Secret Service to step down.
I do know that President Trump very much respects and values the Secret Service team that is around him and credits his being alive to them.
The FBI says it has been able to gain access into the shooter's phone, but sources telling CBS News at this point they haven't been able to glean any information that could reveal a possible motive.
Outside the Buffalo Township Volunteer Fire Company Tuesday, people came to pay their respects to former Fire Chief Corey Comparator, who was killed during the assassination attempt. Charlie DeMar, CBS News, Butler, Pennsylvania.
Day 2 of the Republican National Convention is themed Make America Safe Again, signaling emphasis on Mr. Trump's signature issues, border security, and immigration. The former president made an appearance on the convention floor last night as the GOP nominee. Natalie Brand has more.
Former President Trump's new running mate did a walkthrough on the convention floor this afternoon ahead of his big speech Wednesday night.
Donald J. Trump.
J.D. Vance joined Trump in the convention hall Monday when the former president brought the crowd to its feet. His right ear bandaged following Saturday's assassination attempt.
You didn't have to see the tears. You could feel the tears fall. And that's what it was for me. When he came into the room, you could just feel the emotions that came over everyone.
RNC delegates describe it as a unifying moment for Republicans, and the Trump campaign is working to further unite the party, with speeches tonight from primary rivals Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. Haley, the former UN ambassador, was added to the lineup following Saturday's shooting. But another Trump primary challenger told CBS News he's not there yet.
I am very pleased, though, that he's come out with a different tone since this last week attempt on his life. And I hope that new tone carries on into the fall. That's very important for our country. And so I'm keeping my options open down the road.
The theme of Day 2's programming is safety, expected to focus on crime and the border.
This is one of the top issues for Republican voters, according to polling.
I think it's a top issue with every voter.
Texas delegate Michael Salvo says he wants to see change right away.
People are scared. Political violence, whatever's happening with the border, it all really mingles to people being unsafe or feeling unsafe.
Tonight, delegates will also be hearing from Americans directly impacted by drugs and crime. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Milwaukee.
Meanwhile, President Biden is in Las Vegas, where he's speaking at the NAACP National Convention, hoping to rally support from black voters. In his first TV interview since Saturday's shooting, the president spoke about his call with former President Trump and got back to making the case against him.
I told him how concerned I was and wanted to make sure I knew how he was actually doing. How do you talk about the threat to democracy, which is real, when a president says things like he says? Do you just not say anything because it may incite somebody? Look, I've not engaged in that rhetoric.
Publicly, most members of Congress have stopped doubting Biden's fitness to take on Trump, but some lawmakers say there are discussions still happening privately. Recent CBS polls show President Biden is trailing in every battleground state, including Nevada, where he arrived last night. Here at home, a group of men needed medical attention after a 2-alarm fire at the H power plant in West Oahu. At around 4:30 yesterday afternoon, we're told smoldering trash sent smoke billowing inside the plant. In total, 5 were treated for smoke inhalation. 4 of them needed to be taken to the hospital. They're all considered in stable condition. On Maui, businesses and landowners are still hoping to rebuild historic Front Street after the Lahaina wildfire. But as Daryl Huff reports, it may take longer than expected.
The shoreline buildings were certainly part of the character of Lahaina, but they were built on posts right on the beach. Most people don't think there's any chance they could ever be built here again.
On the evening of August 8th, this video from Front Street stunned Kaleo Schneider.
By 7:30 at night, by the pictures that we were seeing, those were our buildings on fire.
And this is what they look like now. After being handed down through 4 generations from Lucy Napela-Kaukau and Antonio Furtado, 6 buildings owned by the family at the heart of Front Street, reduced to rubble and ash and walls and posts reaching up from the beach.
I could see the whole town coming back, and I could see it being really cute.
Schneider's family has vowed not to sell out. She is part of the Front Street Recovery Group representing property owners. She says 46 of the 50 owners are local families like hers. She says the consensus is that Front Street be built back almost entirely as it was.
It was quaint, it was charming, it was historic. That's the exact look they want to keep. Of course, we want to build back with materials that are more sustainable.
They also support restoring the cultural corridor, including the restoration of the ponds at Moku'ula, and say they completely respect the need to get residents back in homes first and they've resisted speaking up until now.
We all felt that we should sit back and be very quiet, and we should be very, give reverence to the whole situation. It even makes me want to start crying right now.
The county has yet to declare what will govern the commercial rebuilding. It could waive rules about shoreline setbacks and environmental assessments, which would lead to a much faster comeback of an economic engine for the county and state.
In the beginning, I had an unrealistic expectation of maybe 3 years we could build back on Front Street.
This is where Sean Corporell's 2 restaurants were on Front Street, across from the banyan tree in a 3-story shopping complex.
About a month after the fire, and it was a pile of debris. I could see some bar stools and some metal things kind of sitting on top of the other debris, but what was a 3-story building pretty much was leveled.
What was it like for you?
It was hard.
When the timeline to rebuild got longer, he decided to move to Kihei, keeping employees who wanted to come back on payroll. It opened last month, with hopes one day of returning to Lahaina.
Because, we love Lahaina, we love Front Street, the people.
But for now, there is no clarity on when or how Lahaina will come back.
It all really depends on what the county, what the mayor, what the governor, what they do.
With the number of jurisdictions, environmental controls, global warming, and all these other factors, it could be a very long time before a final decision is made about this shoreline. Reporting from Lahaina, Daryl Huff, Hawaii News Now.
On Kauai, pieces of the tour helicopter that crashed off the Napali coast are washing up. Campers at Kalalau Beach turned debris over to the Coast Guard. That included a fuel tank found floating about 30 yards offshore. The helicopter went down last week Thursday, about a quarter-mile offshore. The search for the pilot, 69-year-old Guy Croydon, and one of the passengers, James Kintua, was suspended on Sunday. The body of Kintua's wife, 53-year-old Amy Nicole, was recovered. The NTSB is investigating. The Honolulu Police Department's Professional Standards Office has received multiple reports of false arrests by Honolulu police officers looking for drunk drivers. Hawaii News Now has been reporting on those who had 0 alcohol detected but were still taken to jail. Chief Investigative Reporter Lynn Kawano has more on what they demand from HPD.
Traffic officers had to undergo more training after our stories aired, but the drivers arrested want HPD to investigate for possible violations.
This may be an ongoing problem that we really need to look into.
Aman Fapuliai was arrested last November for DUI.
Come on, put your hands behind you, bro.
That's despite a breathalyzer test of 0.00. Fapuliai sent a complaint to HPD's Professional Standards Office, citing policy violations, but PSO sent him this letter weeks later. It said, upon a review of the facts available by the officer's immediate command, they were not able to find sufficient evidence to sustain the complaint.
That means they took my situation lightly, and that's just me. I'm just wondering about every other situations that happen to innocent people.
Basically, they're going to look at all of the standards of conduct and see if the officer violated any of it.
John Burge, a former HPD officer turned attorney, says he's surprised the officer who transported Fapuliai wasn't in violation for turning off the body camera. Other than that, he doesn't expect any discipline.
There should be some type of discipline or counseling to the officer, because I believe that their regulation says they're supposed to turn it on. And I noticed after the stories now that they are leaving it on, whereas before they would shut it off.
Another driver who was arrested for DUI, this high school senior.
Pulled you over because you're swerving, huh?
The 18-year-old took a breath test at the police station, which showed he too had 0 alcohol in his system.
Okay, put your hands behind your back, okay?
He also has filed a complaint with HPD's Professional Standards Office. That investigation is still ongoing. The department confirms they have 2 other complaints from drivers. Some of the drivers arrested say they are now considering a possible civil lawsuit. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you, Lynn. Let's take a live look outside now over Honolulu with our tower cam. We do have some news to pass along from the Big Island. Due to the elevated fire risk, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is closing sections of Mauna Loa Road and Helena Pali Road to vehicles effective today until further notice. Helena Pali Road is closed to vehicles from the Mauna Iki Trailhead to Helena Pali Lookout, and Mauna Loa Road will be closed to vehicles from the gate past Kipu Kapua Ula to Mauna Loa Lookout. Now, pedestrians and bicyclists may continue to use both roads, and backcountry permits will be provided access to those trailheads. Okay, we're going to have a look at your island forecast with Guy Hoggy after this quick break.
How's it on this Tuesday? We're now in the second month of hurricane season, and this could be the next tropical cyclone in the East Pacific. There's a 40% chance of these thunderstorms to get organized enough to become a tropical depression. That's over the next 5 days, so we'll keep an eye on it. Still very far away from us, will not impact our weather anytime soon. So we're still very quiet in the Central Pacific. There are some clouds upstream, but those clouds are very stable. They're not holding much in the way of rainfall, so you can see showers are very sparse this morning, mainly for the windward side of Maui. It is cloudy, but it is relatively dry. Now, these winds will run at brisk levels again today. Lighter winds are on the charts for tomorrow. So today the winds will run about 15 to 20 miles an hour. That means brush fire threat is elevated actually because of the low humidity levels. We'll see lots of sunshine. It's going to be a very, very pleasant day, especially when you add in the breezy trade winds. And as far as the surf, it's still elevated for the South Shore, where the high surf advisory has been extended. 7 to 10 on the way down, so still big, still dangerous, and it's still choppy over in the east side. And we get a small little pulse expected into the North Shore today. Nothing to write home about, but it's going to keep it from going flat. Now, the weather is going to be very, very nice. A little breezy today, lighter winds on the way starting Wednesday all the way through Friday. And over the weekend, the winds pick up again, and there's a chance for a few more windward and Mauka showers.
The Paris Olympics are less than 2 weeks away, and organizers are putting their final touches on venues in the heart of the city. But concerns remain about one important venue and whether it's clean enough for swimmers to compete in. Lee Kinnery has more.
10 days to the Olympics. Venues are just about ready. The torch has traveled up the tower, and athletes are arriving. Paris is pulling out all the stops. And after a slippery start, French authorities say the Seine River is clean enough for now for events planned in the water.
If this is the results they're getting, that's great. I hope nobody gets any skin disease during the Olympics. I'm sorry to say that.
Last month, tests revealed dangerous levels of E. coli bacteria, indicating fecal matter in the river. The Seine is in the heart of Paris and set to host the triathlon and open water swimming events, as well as the Olympic ceremony, a first outside of a stadium. French authorities have spent $1.5 billion to make it safe.
Personally, I wouldn't, but if the scientists say it's okay, well, why not?
And for safety outside of the water, a military camp has been erected in the city, the biggest since World War II. It will house 4,500 soldiers who the military says can reach any of the Olympic venues within 30 minutes. A trip to Paris was already on many bucket lists, but the added attraction of an Olympic Games makes it record-breaking. 8.6 million tickets have been sold for these Olympics. Organizers say that's more than any previous Games in history. Lee Canary, CBS News, London.
Four-time Grammy nominee and country singer Ingrid Andress is apologizing after her off-key performance of the national anthem at the MLB's Home Run Derby at Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas last night. The singer explained on Instagram that she was drunk and is checking herself into a facility to get help. All right, that's going to do it for us on This Is Now. We're going to have much more news and headlines coming up first at 4 on KHNL and, of course, always on your HNN digital platforms. Aloha.